Good evening, folks. Breaking news. This is pretty exciting news. And this is news that I did a longer video of back in October 2016, where I looked at where the temple stood, where they could possibly rebuild it, the speculation being that if the Jews all of a sudden come out one day and say, oh, you know what, maybe the Dome of the Rock is not where the original temple stood, maybe we can rebuild it somewhere else. Well, all of a sudden you have a great deal for a peace plan, and you have much more potential to get a temple stood up without World War III. Of course, the Arabs and the followers of Islam would not put up by any stretch with the tearing down of the Dome of the Rock. So if the temples had stood there, where would the Jews put it? They wouldn't go with putting it any other place than where they originally believed it to be. And I speculated in that video from 2016, you know, what if one day the Jewish people, the rabbis, decide, oh, you know what, this isn't where it was in the first place, we can actually build over here, and that means there's space for us to rebuild the third temple. And I think that's exactly what this article is basically saying. And this is January 9th, 2019, breaking news, breakingisraelnews.com. And it's about a rabbi who says the gold Dome of the Rock, not where the Jewish temples stood. And that's from an expert. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack on to the end of this video what ends up being a 40-minute video where I went in depth with Google Maps, Google the satellite imagery, and I walk around even Street View, Google Street View, and I take a look at the various sites, the old city of David, etc., and add some information, fill in some information about what the possibilities are if all of a sudden they decide that maybe the Dome of the Rock is not where the original temple stood, and in fact the places that are empty now, i.e. the land just beside, to the north, I believe, of the Dome of the Rock, and also the old city of David, is empty and vacant. There's vacant property there where they could rebuild the temple. So let's take a look at this, and then I'll let you watch the video. A Temple Mount expert, a rabbi who has been studying the subject for years, combined his knowledge of Jewish sources and archaeology and arrived at the conclusion that the Jewish temples did not stand where visitors now see the prominent golden Dome of the Rock. The Temple Mount is the holiest site in Judaism. To be more precise, the site draws its sanctity from the two temples that once stood there. Their precise location is a great source of debate, and many Jews refrain from entering the site. They won't even go up there because they're afraid that they're going to walk on the Holy of Holies or near it and basically desecrate it. Knowing the precise location of the temples would permit all Jews to ascend the temple, to ascend to the site, as well as pave the way for the third temple to be rebuilt. And that's exactly what I speculated back in 2016, which I think is effectively being fulfilled at this point. It says Jews who ascend the Temple Mount frequently look to the Golden Dome as a focal point, believing the two Jewish temples stood precisely where there with the large stone, the centerpiece of the Muslim shrine at the Holy of Holies. But Rabbi Harry Moskoff, the author of Ark Report, has come to a different conclusion. The Dome of the Rock is close, but not on spot. His 20-year search has led him through many possibilities. He says, at first, I thought it was the northern end of the Temple Mount, Moskoff told Breaking Israel News. He based this on the research of Professor Kaufman of the Hebrew University, who was considered one of the leading experts on the subject until he passed away. Moskoff corresponded with the professor regarding his theory. He believed that the Holy of Holies was located where the Dome of Spirits now sits. So let's look up Dome of Spirits, and we'll see if we can get a satellite view of this, because this is very fascinating. So there's some images of the Dome of the Spirits. Let me go to Google Images here, and you'll note that this sits apart from the Dome of the Rock. Let's see, is there a satellite view? That's not a bad image. Temple Mount. Let's see, Temple Mount satellite. Temple Mount satellite. Alright, so we've got the Temple Mount satellite image. Let's see if we can locate. Let's go into this one here. That's That's not very big. Let's find something that's better here. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I should have prepared this prior to, of course. And I have it actually in my other video. Huh. Well, let's see. Let's see. I could go to Google Maps. I could go to Google Maps. All right, let's go to maps.google.com, and I'll quickly show you where this could be exactly, because it's very interesting, and it relates to the Eastern Gate, Temple Mount. It relates to the Eastern Gate because the Eastern Gate has to kind of be in line with the temple, and the reason that is because the sacrifice, the sacrifice has to be seen through the temple to Mount Moriah. So let's go to satellite view. So there's a Dome of the Rock right there, satellite view here. And what we'll do is we'll try and turn this around. Yeah, so I think, oops, I think, well, you can't even see what I'm doing, can you? Can you see what I'm doing? Oh, yeah. I didn't think it was showing the that image for a second. All right, so let's zoom out for a second here and pull this here. So the Golden Gate here is up at the top. Can you see that? Yes, you can see the Golden Gate there. And the Dome of Spirits is north of, above the Dome of the Rock, kind of at the back of the Temple Mount. I believe that is it, at the back of the Temple Mount. It's not labeled there. Not labeled as Dome of Spirits, but it's over there, kind of above in this image, or north of the Temple Mount. And so I go into detail about, you know, there's lots of space in that northern section, or that plot of land, and it's directly across from the Eastern Gate, where some prophetic things have to occur. Jesus is going to return through that gate. And so it would be fascinating if all the temples, all the religions of the world could call the Temple Mount holy, and not disturb each other's holy temples, basically. And so that's what we have here. So it goes on. The Dome of Spirits is a partly natural, partly man-made cave which lies beneath the surface, known which lies beneath the surface is unknown, as the Muslim authorities refused to allow even cursory observations on the mount. Moscow then began to investigate the theory proposed by archaeologists who held that the Holy of Holies stood where the Al-Kas cup fountain now stands, much further south than the Dome of the Spirits. The fountain is the main ablution located between the Dome of the Rock and the silver-domed Al-Aqsa Mosque. The fountain was originally supplied with water from Solomon's pools. So anyways, they're thinking it's in a different location, but it's very fascinating. The fact that they're starting to think that, maybe the temple was not at the Dome of the Rock. Maybe it could be in a different location. And I think this is the start, basically, of the rabbis of the Jews saying, you know what, it could be somewhere else. And I go into detail in the video that you're going to see next. So stay tuned, watch that video, try and sit through it. You can fast forward it, every once in a while if the particular part isn't to the point. It's about 40 minutes long, but it goes through all the detail, historical sources. It goes through definitions. It goes through the city of David and the different locations in Jerusalem where the Temple Mount could have been, based on the spring of water. There has to be water for the temple, and the fact that the land on top of the Temple Mount, north of the Dome of the Rock, above the Dome of the Rock in that image, is vacant and directly opposite of the Eastern Gate, etc. The Eastern Gate. So, folks, listen to that one. Check that one out. I'm gonna play it right after this one. And I'm at a loss for words. This is incredible. This is what I speculated on in 2016. It's coming to pass. And I think this is exactly what pushes us. This is exactly what I would expect to occur in preparation for the rebuilding of the Third Temple. For the Jews to realize, oh, there is a plot of land that is vacant where the original temple actually was, and now we can build on it without disturbing any of the Islam's holy sites, so as to not basically trigger World War III. Guys, I'll leave it there. Check out the rest of this video, and as always, thanks for watching. Hey guys, everything new under the sun. I'm going to attempt to take a look at the Temple Mount with the news of the UNESCO vote to deny Jewish history on the Temple Mount, and with all the tension and strife and things happening there, with the Jews finally getting to go up there and pray on the Temple Mount. I want to take a look at the Temple Mount and where possibly the temples existed. Did they actually exist on the Temple Mount? And this was brought up by a subscriber, and who made a comment on my videos about the Temple Mount, and suggested, well, that's not actually where the Temple Mount was, or that's not actually where the temple was. And of course, I had heard of the idea of the temple actually not being where we think the Temple Mount is now. So I want to take a look at some articles here and some pictures, and see if we can maybe piece together where the temple might have been, and where it could be. And it's important prophetically, because if they finally figure out that, oh, the temple does not need to be actually on the Temple Mount with the Dome of the Rock, if it doesn't need to be there, then there's no stress and tension with the Arabs, and there's no conflict with UNESCO, and if it's not on the Temple Mount at all, then no one's going to care where Israel builds a temple, which means they can build a temple anytime if it's not actually on the Temple Mount, because there's a lot more trouble there, and a lot more people they'd have to get to agree to building a temple there, etc. So let's have a look at it. So this is an article from I think it's khouse.org, Koinonia House, which is Chuck Misler. And this article specifically is written by Robert Cornuke, as you can see there. And it's speaking about archaeology and the place of the Temple Mount. Now you can see the images below. This is the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And this is normally where, this complex here is normally where they figure that the temple stood. And of course, you got the Western Wall there, and where the Jews pray, where they think was the original the wall. And if I'm right, I believe it's down here on this wall, the Kotel there. And so you got that Temple Mount there, and everybody thinks, well, you need to build a temple over here. Maybe this is where the original temple was. But the problem is, there's no spring on the temple, and the temple uses a lot of water, and the Bible speaks of water in the sacrifices in a spring coming from the hill. Now, it doesn't suggest that there could be something supernatural. The spring all of a sudden pops up and starts flowing in the time of the end. However, if there's an existence of a spring, and it's named as was named in the Bible, somewhere else, then it's worth taking a look. And there's a number of pieces of evidence that suggest that the Solomon's temple actually was not on the Temple Mount proper as they think it was, and actually in a different location. So let's get into this here. And remember, this is learning for me, and I hope it's good information, good learning experience for you as well. Definitely go check out the information and come to your own conclusions. But I'm learning as I research this as well, and it's interesting to think about prophetically and historically. There's no place that is considered more significant as well as volatile piece of real estate than the Temple Mount. Some say that World War III will erupt there. More blood has been shed over disputes of ownership and control of the traditional temple platform than any other location. And so the traditional platform is this kind of rectangular shape here, and that's kind of where the dispute is focused. But some now believe the Temple of Solomon was never even there at all,
and that the legend of it being at that spot has gone unchallenged for so long now that tradition seems to have sealed reality into a long-forgotten tomb. And that's a key statement, because if it is forgotten, and all of a sudden comes up new, wouldn't that be a game changer in the Middle East if Israel realized, oh, the temple was not on the Temple Mount. What have we been fighting for with the Muslims all these years? We can just build our temple because it's not even on the Temple Mount. Like so many, I thought that location for the Temple of Solomon has been proven to be on the traditional Temple Mount in Jerusalem. But I became suspicious, Robert Cornuke says, after reading the work of the late archaeologist and author Dr. Ernest L. Martin. My research efforts would not have been possible without his groundbreaking insights. However, I hope my own personal research presented herein offers a bold new chapter in this potentially history-adjusting subject. So, this is Google Maps on the side here, and you see the western wall is right about here. The pin is the city of David, and you got the Temple Mount up here, and the Islamic quarter there. And so, well, let's get into the more of the article here. Let the debate begin, the article goes on. Jesus warned his disciples of the coming destruction of the temple, and that not one stone of the temple would be left upon another. Matthew 24, 1-2. A very prophetic chapter, obviously. Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, do you not see all these things? Surely I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. Christ's words clearly state that the entire temple, each and every stone, would be dug up, dislodged, and tossed away. Isn't it interesting to note that the massive stone blocks by the thousands set in the wall supporting the Temple Mount platform? Was Jesus wrong in his prophesying that not one stone would remain standing? So we're speaking of the Kotel, the western, the Wailing Wall, and that is the wall where the Jews think, was the wall of the temple, basically the original wall there. And so, if that still stands today, was Jesus wrong? Is the Bible wrong, saying that no stone would stay on top of another, that they would all be dislodged? So that's the question he's asking, effectively. So all the stones have to be toppled over if the Bible is to be 100% literally accurate. And I've said it before, and I agree with everybody who thinks this way. The more literally you take the Bible, the more it turns out to be accurate. And it's, the more literal you take it, the more literal you can take it, and it becomes true in every way. Historian Flavius Josephus wrote that the entirety of the temple was indeed in total ruin, and the destruction after 70 AD. He went on to say that if he had not personally been in Jerusalem during the war and witnessed the demolition by Titus of the temple that took place there, he wouldn't have believed it existed. Josephus, from his Jewish Wars, volume 7, speaks of widespread destruction in all of Jerusalem as well. So if the temple was completely destroyed, to the last stone being toppled over, what is and what was the huge stone fortress we see today rising over Jerusalem? I believe, as others do, that it once was the Roman fort occupied by the mighty 10th Legion. I also believe that the true site of Solomon's temple is about 1,000 feet south of the Temple Mount in the city of David. This would mean that Jesus was correct in his prophetic words, and that each and every stone, to the last one, was thrown down. And so on the image on the side here, just a satellite image, you've got the Temple Mount there, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque down here, the Temple Mount, Dome of the Rock over here, and you got the city of David right here, and that's what the pin is basically pointing to. And look at Derek Ha'ophel, because that's important, because the Ophel Mound comes up later, and I wonder if that's a transliteration of Ophel Mound right there, that street name there. Where was the temple? The garrison in Fort Antonia in Jerusalem was as big as several cities, according to Josephus, housing approximately 6,000 men plus the needed support staff. All told, as many as 10,000 personnel served there. But this huge fort was never found in Jerusalem by archaeologists. I feel that the reason archaeologists have not found the mighty Roman fort is because the tradition of the Temple Mount complex, being the temple site, has blinded them. So historical objects on the ground are being obscured because people have this predefined belief. They have a certain belief in something, and they aren't looking for other answers, so they're not finding other answers. And isn't that the truth with creation evolution? With evolutionists, they've already decided what is what, and so they will not look for any. They're not looking for answers, basically, not looking for the truth. They think they already have the truth. And I should mention, the western wall is over here, the kotel. I think I was pointing to it incorrectly over here. There's where it is on the image there. City of David. 3,000 years ago, the city of David was about 12 acres in size. And it had an estimated population of only around 2,000 people. It is a finger of land just south of the present traditional Temple Mount. As a former policeman, I would like at this point to lay out a linear case for the city of David as the one and only place for the temple, but first must present a brief history. The Jebusite fortification was a fortress, albeit a small one, but it had what David wanted. It was strategically situated, with the high-walled castle-looking complex rising majestically from the Kidron Valley. So the Kidron Valley is over on the right side here. A spring flowed abundantly inside with clear, pure water, which made it even more desirable. So water is an important thing in sacrifices. So if the temple was there and the sacrifices were in the temple, you would have needed a spring and the source of water there. The Bible tells us that while David and his army were outside looking up at the Jebusite stronghold, so they're looking up at it, of course, they are standing defiant on top of the walls were men hollering down mockingly. This is from 2 Samuel 5, 6-10. You shall not come in here, but the blind and the lame will repel you. Thinking David cannot come in here, nevertheless David took the stronghold of Zion, that is, the city of David. Now David said on that day, whoever climbs up by the way of the water shaft and defeats the Jebusites, the lame and the blind who are hated by David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Therefore, they say, the blind and the lame shall not come into the house. Then David dwelt in the stronghold and called it the city of David. 2 Samuel 5. So a city lost. Over time, the temple was built by Solomon in the city of David, but it was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, only to have other successive temples rebuilt with far less grandeur, finally ending with Herod building his temple with Christ, which Christ actually visited on many occasions. Herod's temple was destroyed, just as Jesus predicted, down to the very last stone. As time passed, no one knew where the completely destroyed temple really was. And since the stronghold of Zion was in the city of David, Zion had vanished as well. For almost 2 millennia, Zion and the city of David lay silently together, buried in a forgotten tomb of earth. Zion, the city of David, and the temple all intersect as one, and he offers the following synopsis of biblical clues. 2 Samuel 5, Zion equals the city of David. Joel 2, Zion, my holy mountain, temple. Joel, Zion, my holy mountain. Joel again. Zion, where the Lord dwells. Psalm 2, my holy hill. Psalm 9, where the Lord dwells. Psalm 20, from sanctuary. Psalm 65, your holy temple. Psalm 102, sanctuary, city of David, temple. Psalm 132, ark, resting place, city of David. Isaiah, mountain of the Lord, house of the God of Jacob. Isaiah 24, Lord of hosts, reigning, place of temple. Isaiah 66, my holy mountain, house of the Lord. When the city of David was missing, and respectively so was Zion, because they were one and the same effectively, scholars and worshippers in the Middle Ages looked to the most attractive feature in Jerusalem as a potential candidate for their lost temple. The impressive high-walled fortress of the Dome of the Rock was the most impressive structure that was still standing, so some assumed it must have some historical prominence, and that prominence was the temple itself. Even though many still argued as to where the true temple site was, Benjamin Tudela 1169 proclaimed emphatically that the Muslim Haram al-Sharif, the current traditional Temple Mount platform, was the proper placement of Solomon's temple. So again, you have Al-Aqsa Mosque here and the Temple Mount, Dome of the Rock up here. And that was supposedly a Roman fort, and that's apparently what is still standing. Because on the western wall, you obviously have stones that are left undisturbed. They are not torn apart like it said the temple was going to be. So the suggestion is that if the Bible is true, then this can't be the location, because those rocks would have been flipped over and dispersed. Eusebius, from the 3rd and 4th century, was curator of the library of Caesarea, at Caesarea. He was a renowned scholar who is still regarded with distinction today. He wrote, "The hill called Zion, and Jerusalem, the building there, that is to say, the temple, the Holy of Holies, the altar, and whatever else was there dedicated to the glory of God, have been utterly removed or shaken in fulfillment of the word." So here we have a prominent Eusebius clarifying with narrow and crystal certainty where the temple was located. He tells us that Zion is a temple site, as mentioned in his writings, and further notes only a few lines later that sadly, after the ruin of Zion, city of David, the very stones from the temple itself and from its ancient sanctuary were scavenged from the temple site in Zion and used for construction of idol temples and of theaters for the populace. If I take the words of Eusebius, Bob Cornuka saying here, and assemble them into a paraphrased short paragraph, it would read as follows: Zion is the place of the temple, the Holy of Holies, as well as the altar. Everything there was shaken down and subsequently ruined. The scattered stones from the ancient destroyed sanctuary in Zion, in the city of David, were all carried away and made into secular structures demeaning to God. Alexander the Great, known as Hectaeus of Abdera, testified that the temple was not only in Zion, but located nearly in the very center of the city of David. So again, you have, this is Google Maps here, by the way, the city of David right here, and we're going to take a look at a map from there shortly. So what does the Bible say? Now look at this image first. Here's the Temple Mount on Mount Moriah. This would be the Dome of the Rock up there. And here you have the Ophel Mount. Remember the street name that I was speaking of? Here, let's see, where is it? Yeah, Derek Haophel. I wondered if that was significant. Maybe transliteration or something of that Ophel, not so. Ophel Mount. And then here is the city of David, which apparently encompasses this area, and you've got the Kidron Valley here. So you can see the Temple Mount is not the same location as the city of David and the Ophel mound there. So what does the Bible say? 2 Samuel 5 says, "Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, that is the city of David. Zion is undoubtedly within the city of David." Joel 3, "Shall you know that I am the Lord God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain." My holy mountain. Temple is without question in Zion, within the city of David. Joel 2 says, "Blow the trumpet in Zion, and sound the alarm in my holy mountain." And Psalm 132 says, "Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and the ark of your strength," the ark of the covenant there. "For the Lord has chosen Zion. He has desired it for his dwelling place. The ark of your strength is the ark of the covenant." The temple will house the ark in prophecy, and Zion is God's chosen place for that, as well as temple placement. It goes on, Isaiah 2 down here, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God, the house of the God of Jacob, for out of Zion shall go forth the law." Psalm 20, "May he send you help from the sanctuary and strengthen you out of Zion." Sanctuary is a temple at Zion. Psalm 9, "Sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion." Isaiah 66, "To my holy mountain, says the Lord, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord. My holy mountain is connected to the house of the Lord's temple. The temple is self-evident as being in Zion. David's tent stood for some 38 years housing the Ark of the Covenant, until Solomon moved the Ark up to his newly built temple, which was more than likely located side by side with the Ophel Mound area at the Gahan Spring. So it's suggested he built his new temple right there, which was just this side of the Temple Mount, as proper as they say now. The Ophel is translated in the King James Version as the stronghold, the same word used in 2 Samuel 5:7. God's Holy Mountain. The city of David was rediscovered in the 1800s, and its walls began at about 600 feet south of today's traditional Temple Mount Dome of the Rock. I found that the Bible further states, "So shall you know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain." This is reflective of the verse which reads, "My holy mountain, Jerusalem, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord," Isaiah 66. Many ancient historians cite a spring at the true temple location. The Roman historian Tacitus recorded that the temple at Jerusalem had a natural spring of water that welled from its interior. Again, these references could only be described in the Gahan Spring. It is located close to what is referred to as the Ophel Mound, which is the bulge of the earth abutting the city of David, laying just to the south and roughly about 1,000 feet from the Temple Mount. There are no springs, however, on the top of the Temple Mount, and that's a big deal. A spring is crucial for the true temple locale. A fountain shall flow from the house of the Lord. Joel 3:18. In Ezekiel, it reads, "Then he brought me back to the door of the temple, and there was water flowing from under the threshold of the temple. Under the threshold of the temple faced east. The water was flowing from under the right side of the temple, south of the altar. He brought me out by the way of the north gate and led me around on the outside to the outer gateway that faces east. And there was water running on the right side." Ezekiel 47. So water is a big deal. There's no springs on the Temple Mount proper, as they say. It doesn't mean that there couldn't be some miracle spring that springs up when the time is right, when they have a temple. That being said, though, why wouldn't the spring just still be there from the time of the temple? It's not like it had to be a pre-flood spring or something. This is all post-flood, so it's not like the flood is going to completely change the geography there. So yeah, it makes sense. If there's a spring there, it's probably still there because it's going to show up in end-time Bible prophecy to be the water for the third temple. And of course, the big deal here is, they can't build the third temple yet because there's so much tension and anger and division with the Christianity and Islam, effectively, who all claim some sort of holy place on the Temple Mount. So let's look at the Gahan Spring. So what is it? This is just a Wikipedia article at the top here. The Gahan Spring, or Fountain of the Virgin, in the Kidron Valley was the main source of water for the Pool of Siloam, and we're going to take a look at that shortly. In the city of David, the original site of Jerusalem, one of the world's major intermittent springs, that's interesting, and a reliable water source that made human settlement possible in ancient Jerusalem. The spring was not only used for drinking water, but also initially for irrigation of gardens in the adjacent Kidron Valley. So they had massive cisterns and tunnels, actually, to funnel the water, to move the water from the Gahan Spring to the Pool of Siloam and other locations as well. The spring is under the control of Israeli settler organization I.R. David Foundation. Isn't that interesting? That foundation may be in possession of the land where the temple was actually built, and in the end times, will they realize that and say, oh, the Jews actually do already own this land. There's no claim to the land by the Arabs at this time, and so they can just go ahead and build a third temple. It goes on, it says, it is sometimes used by Jewish men as a sort of mikvah. So this is from another site about the Pool of Siloam, just about the miracles there and the biblical side of it, just for a bit of side interest. Pool of Siloam is found 3 times in the Bible: Nehemiah 3:15, Isaiah 8, and John 9. The Hebrew word for Siloam means sent, pool of the sent. This is interesting because Jesus sent the blind man to the pool to be healed. Josephus often references the Pool of Siloam He said it was located at the end of the Valley of the Cheesemongers, or the Typoan Valley. Josephus Wars 541. He also said it was outside the city wall. So the city of David wall, I guess, at a place where the old wall bent to the east towards the rising sun. And that's significant because there's an eastern gate that the Lord's going to walk through in the end times. And that's very prophetic, obviously, as well. But also facing the hill upon which the rock called Peristerion, which was further east. Josephus was likely making reference to the present Birket Silwan on the other side of the Kidron Valley. The pool of Siloam is fed by a conduit that is cut for a distance of 1,780 feet through solid rock. So this is, it's amazing that they have an aqueduct basically through there. Let's take a look at the. That's not the one. Well, here is, just as an example, here is the Ophel Mound, and this is the pool of Siloam down here, and they actually had tunnels cut through the rock from the Gihon Spring down to the pool of Siloam and around there. So 1,780 feet through solid rock, and which starts at the so-called Virgin Spring. The reason for which it was cut is unmistakable. The Virgin Spring is the only spring of fresh water in the immediate neighborhood of Jerusalem. Isn't that interesting? And in time of siege, it was important. While the enemy should be deprived of access to it, its water should be made available for those who were within the city. The Gihon Spring was a source of water for the pool, and it was heavily guarded by a gate from David's time. Queen Helena dug what she thought was the Siloam pool, and until the real one was discovered in 2004, Queen Helena is well documented for choosing locations blindly or for purely self-interest reasons. So she kind of made a mess of the site there, thinking it was the pool of Siloam. The pool was discovered when a local City of Jerusalem utility crew were repairing a pipe. They dug deeper and hit huge rocks of the pool. You can see the damage today where the machine hit the stairs, and this comes from a site where you can actually see all the images of it. This map here shows the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque right here, and then you can see further down south, this Kidron Valley, this is east. Then you can see the Gihon, which is kind of on the valley wall here. The Ophel Mound, which is suggested where Solomon built his newly rebuilt temple there, and where the Ark of the Covenant was likely stored, and they would have had water from the Gihon Spring for the sacrifices. And there was underground hewn out of the solid rock, the tunnel to feed the pool of Siloam, where many of the biblical healings occurred, and many stories about that. The threshing floor, past and future. According to the Bible, as referenced previously, 2 Chronicles 3, the threshing floor is in effect the anchor point for the temple. It was the area of the Gihon Spring. It also seems to be close to where the angel of the Lord stepped in to abort Abraham's attempt to sacrifice his son. Again, they think this is on the Sorry, I muted the mic there. They think Abraham's sacrifice was on the Temple Mount. Actually, in this in the A here, where there's a little piece of rock showing from Mount Moriah there, and a lot of people think that that's actually where Abraham was going to sacrifice his son. And of course, the Muslims believe the rock underneath the Dome of the Rock is where the sacrifice took place, and also apparently where Muhammad left on a horse or something in the Quran or Hadith or wherever that is. It was in the area of the Gihon Spring. It also seems to be close to where the angel of the Lord stepped in to abort Abraham's attempted sacrifice. A future judgment will occur on this ancient missing threshing floor, where a new temple will be built. Wouldn't it be interesting if God preserved the land and didn't have it sullied by other religions such as by Islam. It hasn't been overrun. It's been sitting dormant. So it makes sense that God would preserve, if that's Zion, his holy mountain, it makes sense that he would preserve it and not just let other man's gods and man create temples to other gods on his holy mountain. Like I say, it makes sense that God preserved it and didn't just let man do a whole bunch of abomination sort of stuff on it and lots of horrible stuff basically. And so, like I say, it makes a lot of sense that maybe he did preserve it, and it's in a completely different location than the current Temple Mount. It is where Jesus will rule and reign. So again, he doesn't want to be on sullied property that has a bunch of history or something like that, and a bunch of bad history at that. He wants to have his own clean mountain, and he probably preserved it. This judgment will be separating of the wheat, those who are forgiven, and the chaff, those who are not forgiven. In Matthew 3, we read a chilling foretelling of this fact. His winnowing fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly clean out his threshing floor and gather his wheat into the barn, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire. In this verse, the barn represents heaven, a perfect destination. However, according to Scripture, if you are the person who rejects the Lord, then you are essentially toast, and he is saying that because of the fire, obviously. So yes, the Lord's coming back. You need to know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. Let's look at a map here. Don't go yet. Here is a Google map representation. So you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque here, and the Dome of the Rock is up off the screen here. You have the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall over here, which the Jews think are the blocks from the original temple. But there's no spring there, and you have references to a spring. And the Gahan spring, the only spring in Jerusalem apparently, is down here. It's well south of the Temple Mount compound. And you can see the tunnel here goes all the way, the Siloam Tunnel. This goes to the Pool of Siloam, which is around here. And the more tunnels kind of circle in there. And so the spring would be key for the temple sacrifices. Not only that, you have the city of David here, and so that's where the Bible says that Solomon built his temple. So, and here you have the Ha-Ophel, the Ophel Mound area here, again spoken of. Here's the view again, satellite view, and you got the city of David, the Gahan Spring down here, Temple Mount's way up here, and you notice all this area that is uninhabited. This is a hill. The valley is here, the Kidron Valley, and you have some houses up here, but this is basically empty. Isn't that interesting and fortuitous? Isn't that convenient that there could be an empty space where the temple could be rebuilt? Did God maybe preserve that whole location? That's what I kind of put out there. Now this is a Google Street View of the location, and it's on this road here where I go to Google Street View, the Gahan Spring. It's right around here, and I'll show you it. Here is a single screenshot. If you look down the bottom left here, if you have it on high resolution, you can see the tunnel, the blue lines. These are the tunnels that we were looking at up here. So you can see this is a larger representation of the tunnel. So we're standing right here with Google Street View, standing right there, and so this is apparently, the spring is right here somewhere. You can see all this land that is uninhabited. So we're going to go to the browser here, and I'll just show you around. Alright, so I got Google Street View, so this is the same image. Now if I pan around, so this is the Kidron Valley here. You can see the steep walls. And again, you got the Temple Mount up over here. This would be the Ophel Mound, effectively. And the Gahan Spring is somewhere around here. Now, I don't know exactly where it would be, but it would be on this, or underneath this hill somewhere. And again, this is owned by some Jewish people, some Jewish organization, owns all this land here. So as soon as they realize, oh, this was actually the location of the third, Solomon's temple, then they could build right here. there's nothing stopping them. There's no there's no settlement on this land here. It even looks almost empty up here. There's no settlers there. There's no Arabs there. There's no dispute. Everybody, the Christians and the Islamic faith can have their holy sites up here on the Temple Mount property, because that's where we, and I'm doing the air quotes, that's where we think the temple was. But the Jews could actually rebuild here, where there's just green grass, empty land. This almost looks even like it's dilapidated, like it's uninhabited, these buildings here. And if I spin around here, you see this is looking down southward, I believe. Yes, looking down southward. And I'm just looking at the compass there. Anyways, this is looking eastward if there's the sun, so that would be the eastward direction. This is probably late in the day, because I think eastward is kind of over here where the sun rises. And more buildings on this side. You notice this hill is kind of used up. This has got lots of buildings on it. But over here there's lots of free land. So I just wonder if the Gihon Spring is right here, and maybe this is actually public utilities or something that are locked down. There's big barriers here, big fences. These could be the fences that are on the opening of the tunnel complex, because of course they don't want people going in the tunnel complex, so they would have that fairly securely closed off. It looks like there's even bars on the windows there. And I zoomed in. Let me go over here. I don't know if that's going to download or not. Let me go back here. Alright, here's another view of it. So I was looking up there before. I was over here with Google Street View, and I just kind of zoomed up the valley here, and I'm on the other side of this complex, where possibly this is where the Gihon Spring is situated, and the massive tunnels there. And you can see this is all just effectively wasteland. It almost looks like there's graffiti on that pillar, even that concrete pillar there. And there's garbage all around. Actually, a lot of garbage. Interesting. Yeah, if this is the Temple Mount, wouldn't that be interesting? And all this land is free. Here you got the corner of I think that's the corner of the Temple Mount there. So, like I say, if this is it, and a Jewish organization already owns this, the question is, could they then rebuild the third temple? As soon as they realize this and say, oh, this is actually where it was. Josephus has been saying it. All the other historians have been saying it. The Bible has alluded to it because of the spring that came out of it. And we have a spring here. And not only is it any old spring, it's a spring that had healing in it, because it's connected to the Pool of Siloam, which in the Bible, many were healed. So you got to know that there's some supernatural properties to whatever the spring was that was in the temple. If any spring is going to have some supernatural properties, it would be the spring that fed the temple, that was used, where the water was used for the temple. So yeah, if the Jews want to rebuild, and they realize, oh, this is actually where it was, all of a sudden there's no tension on the Temple Mount. Everyone can be happy. The Arabs, the Islam can have their holy site, and the Jews can have their holy site, and then they can rebuild it right now. And how much land is that? God, I think maybe God preserved this land. He set it up so that no one would build on it, so that in the end times there would be a location. And he wanted to keep it pure as well. He doesn't want temples of other gods on his holy mountain, Zion. And so he kept it pure. He kept it from other temples existing on it, and he even kept it buildings from being built on it. That doesn't even look like there's a lot of stuff happening up there. So I don't know what the land looks like up there, but I don't know. I'll just put that out there to you guys. What do you think of that? I think it's a pretty interesting. It's more than it's speculation. It's more than conjecture, because there's a lot of historical reference and evidence backing up that indeed the Temple Mount was not the location of the temple, and we've just believed that for so long. And maybe that's even Satan. Maybe Satan didn't want us to know, want to have us confused and have the Jews confused about the Temple Mount, because he doesn't want people worshiping God. So why not confuse them all and have them worship God, have them think they're worshiping God somewhere else, which is completely incorrect. So I think God is preserving his holy mountain, and I think that totally makes sense biblically and prophetically. When they finally realize where it actually was, and maybe it's right on top of the Gihon Spring, then they'll be able to rebuild the third temple, and we'll be off to the races prophetically. So I will leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think. And Jesus is coming soon, and they will be rebuilding a temple real soon, I think, possibly up on this hill here on the west side of the Kidron Valley. And you need to know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. He died on a cross about 2,000 years ago for my sin and for your sin. And we all need to know Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, because he is coming back to judge the world, and there's a lot of sin in the world that he has to take care of. He's a holy God, and he's going to deal with it. So I will leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.